It was a good time for me to get back into Resident Evil. I started my marathon on my Let's Play channel just shortly before the original trilogy began flowing back on PC via GOG. And it's time for us to go back and cover the mini games of the franchise available on handheld PCs, specifically the Steam Deck. So let's dive right in. To start things off, here is how I've gotten Resident Evil 0 and Resident Evil HD Remaster to run on the original Steam Deck. For a bit of context, I am referring to the PC versions of Resident Evil 0 and the Resident Evil 1 Remake, first released on the GameCube, then Wii, then everything else. So this is RE1 with the photorealism, Lisa Trevor, and the like. Not the old PS1 original with talk of Jill sandwiches and terrible demons. Before we get started, let's talk about launch options. Leaving either of these games on Linux will give you weird graphical glitches when going through FMVs in certain rooms that look kind of like old TV static. So you're going to want to turn on Proton. You'll also need different versions for different games. Resident Evil 1 HD is completely fixed with Proton Experimental, but 0 is still broken that way with the visual glitches. The only version I've found to fix 0 and let you play in 60 FPS mode is Proton 7-30. Let's begin with 0. The Steam page says 0 is incompatible, but that's mostly just because of the graphical glitches that we just talked about. So with that fixed, let's talk about performance. By default, it's pretty good. Some of the cutscenes, like the opening crawl, will default to 30 FPS, though the gameplay will be unlocked and try to stick itself up at 60. You'll notice right away that it jumps around the mid-50s to 60 for a lot of the game. I found that tweaking with the settings can help but not completely fix this. When going around hallways that dip, you can turn off anti-aliasing to minimize them, but they will still happen and you'll get hiccups from time to time. There are two different kinds of frame drops that happen in this game. There are frame drops that happen because of the environment, like walking around corners or flame effects being on screen, and there are some that hiccup from performing actions like starting combat. The environmental effects can mostly be gotten rid of by locking the deck down at a refresh rate below 60. If you lock it down to 40 FPS, I don't get any drops in the initial hallways that have drops or the fire-based room in the train right after Billy joins your party. But the action or combat drops do still happen. When first firing on enemies, I'll get small dips, but only for a moment at a time. It's not perfect for what we have here, but I think this is plenty acceptable. Next up is Resident Evil HD Remaster, or as the community like to call it, a remake or just remake. When you get started, you'll want to go into video settings from the title screen so you can flip that 30 FPS mode to 60 FPS. And I mentioned you're going to want to do this before you go into the game, because unlike 0, you can only adjust the video and graphical settings of Remake when you're at the title screen. Thankfully, since we're already using Proton Experimental and not some of the earlier versions or Linux, performance is pretty much perfect in Resident Evil 1. You don't have to turn AA off, you don't really have to do anything. You'll get the occasional dip down into 58 when wandering around, but overall it's basically perfect. Let's talk about battery life. Both of these games use pretty much the same amount of power. On a full charge, you're going to get about an hour and a half out of either of them. Now as we wrap this up, would I recommend these games to Steam Deck users? I probably would. They're not absolute stable perfection, but they still play smoothly, especially with Remake. Just make sure you put them on Proton to fix that weird TV static visual glitch and you'll have a great time with these games on the go. And that's all I've got for you today. I'll be back soon with more handheld PC performance and reviews as we continue to trek through the different RE games available on the deck. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to leave them below. And check out my Let's Play channel if you're interested in that for Resident Evil. I'm almost done with the PS1 original trilogy and plan to go through every released game the Vita TV, Switch, Steam Deck, and Lenovo Legion Go are capable of playing or emulating. Anyways, thank you for watching and have a great day.